Welcome back to Neural Intel. Today, we are breaking down OpenAI's latest release, GPT 5.2. But look, this isn't just another simple model update, not by a long shot. This is really a story about high-stakes competition, some emergency pivots, and what all of this really means for you, the developer, who's actually on the front lines. Let's dive in. So, let's just get right to it. The story of GPT 5.2. Well, it doesn't start with some nice, neat, planned release. Nope, it starts with an emergency, a code red. That is the absolute highest level of urgency, a signal that the entire company has to mobilize, like right now. You see, the AI race, it's not a marathon anymore. It's an all-out sprint, and we're measuring it in weeks, not quarters. And this timeline here, it just paints such a vivid picture of the sheer intensity of the AI race in late 2025. I mean, it was just this relentless flurry of releases from all the major players. Google basically fired the starting pistol with Gemini 3, Anthropic followed like right on their heels with Claude 4.5, and then, just a few weeks later, OpenAI was pretty much forced to respond with GPT 5.2. This isn't just a sprint, it's a high-stakes game of leapfrog. So what was it that actually prompted this code red? Well, the catalyst was the really formidable launch of Google's Gemini 3, a model that, for a minute there, looked like it could actually snatch the performance crown right away from them. Yet for a moment, it really looked like Gemini 3 had taken the lead, especially in deep multimodal reasoning, complex logic, and just raw speed. And this wasn't just some win on paper, it led to a real surge in user growth for Google. So this put this immense pressure on OpenAI to not just catch up, but to leapfrog way ahead. So OpenAI's response, it wasn't just about speed. It was a fundamental architectural shift. They didn't just iterate on what they had. No, they basically rebuilt the engine from the ground up. Let's take a closer look at what they actually did. Okay, this slide right here perfectly illustrates the massive leap OpenAI took. They moved away from what you could call a clumsy committee of models, a really fragile system that had to route tasks to all these different specialized experts for vision or code or reasoning. GPT 5.2 just collapses all of that into a single unified mega agent with over 20 tools built right in. For developers, this is a total game changer. And this wasn't just some academic change in a lab somewhere. The real-world impact was immediate. Enterprise partners like Triple Whale called the new system, and I'm quoting here, 100x easier to maintain. I mean, when you're running at scale, that kind of simplification is a massive, massive win.
All right, it's time for our neural signal check. This is where we break down why this development actually matters on a technical level for anyone who's out there building with these models.
Okay, here is the key takeaway for all you developers out there. This unified architecture, it means less internal complexity, which translates directly to lower latency and higher reliability in your production workflows. You can finally stop wrestling with those sprawling system prompts or trying to bolt on external frameworks just to get different skills to work together. The model can now handle complex, multi-step tasks from a single, simple prompt. And that is a massive accelerator for deployment. And here's a number that will make any developer's ears perk up. A 30% reduction in errors and hallucinations. In a high-stakes enterprise environment, that's not just a nice-to-have, it is an absolute game changer. This is the kind of improvement that takes a model from just a helpful tool to a mission-critical part of your infrastructure. So, did the gambit work? Did this architectural overhaul and this super accelerated release actually reclaim the performance lead? Well, let's look at the numbers and see how GPT 5.2 really performed head-to-head against its rivals. This table tells a really fascinating story. OpenAI came back strong for sure. They re-established a clear lead in the pure math of AME and the abstract reasoning of ARC. But the competition is just fierce. Gemini 3 DeepThink is still the champ in the PhD-level reasoning of GPQA, and Claude Opus 4.5 is holding a slight edge in the practical coding challenges of SWE Bench. So the era of one model ruling them all? Yeah, that's officially over. This perfect score on the AME 2025 math competition, it's a real showstopper. And the reason it's so significant is because it was achieved without any external tools, like a code interpreter. This demonstrates a massive leap in the model's pure intrinsic reasoning ability, its fundamental intelligence. And then on ARC AGI 2, which is a key test of fluid intelligence and novel problem solving, GPT 5.2 just opened up this significant lead over the competition. This benchmark is notoriously difficult to game with training data, so this score really suggests a genuine advance in general reasoning ability. So, what does all this mean for enterprise deployment? I mean, benchmark wins are great and all, but strategic deployment is what really truly matters. OpenAI has been very smart about its product tiers and pricing, and here's how they've structured it all. So, OpenAI has segmented its offerings to give developers more control. You've got Instant for those high-volume, low-latency tasks. Then there's Thinking for your core agentic workflows. And finally, Pro for when you need every bit of power you can get for those mission-critical jobs. This lets you optimize for cost and performance. But there is a crucial detail every single developer needs to know about. And here is the catch. It's called the reasoning default shift. By default, the API now uses the lower cost, lower latency settings. So to get that state-of-the-art performance we were just looking at in the benchmarks, you have to explicitly request and pay for the Thinking or Pro modes. This puts the responsibility of managing that cost-performance trade-off squarely on your shoulders. And this is really where the rubber meets the road. Partners like Box are already using GPT-5.2's advanced reasoning for these high-stakes tasks, like financial due diligence. The model can ingest and compare dozens of complex legal documents and then provide portfolio-level insights in minutes instead of days. I mean, that is a massive productivity boost. But this breakneck pace of innovation, it does come at a cost. For development and deployment teams, this high-velocity reality presents a major, major challenge. How in the world do you keep up? And as this sarcastic, but let's be honest, pretty telling comment from Reddit highlights, the developer community has a really complicated relationship with this rapid pace of change. What's state-of-the-art in the morning can honestly feel obsolete by the afternoon. This constant churn creates real friction. Enterprises are forced to constantly validate new model behaviors and manage the overhead of API migration. And just for context, GPT 5.1 is set to be deprecated just 3 months after its release. This forces a reliance on OpenAI, and that increases the risk of vendor lock-in. It also makes internal abstraction layers, basically code that isolates your application from direct vendor APIs, absolutely critical for survival. Which, of course, brings us to the billion-dollar question for every CTO and solutions architect out there. In a world where state-of-the-art is a constantly moving target, how do you build a stable, long-term AI strategy without getting trapped in a never-ending cycle of migration? It's a question that's going to define the next chapter of enterprise AI. Thanks for joining us. To stay updated on the latest, visit our webpage at neuralintel.org and check us out on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.